Wozniak. My guests today are from Kuubix Energy, a solar installation company that provides solar panels and energy storage throughout the state of California. From Visalia, California, I would like to welcome Geoff Howard, Vice President, and Josh Butt, CEO of Kuubix Energy. Welcome, guys. How are you today?
Doing very well, Chrissy. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. So, can we start off by each of you just telling me a bit about your backgrounds and how you got into this industry?
Yeah, Geoff, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, I actually have been in the energy business for several years. With the increase in fuel prices going on right now, the previous industry I was in for a decade was fuel and renewable energy, so renewable diesel, biodiesel, along with typical fossil fuels. And then I've been in the solar industry since joining Kuubix for 2.5 years now.
Very
Yeah.
good.
And so I spent around 20 years in food manufacturing, so nothing to do with
Oh, wow.
renewable energy. But I ran operations and quality and continuous improvement in the food manufacturing space, and then joined Kuubix just over 2 years ago as the CEO. And so it's been a rapid learning process to understand the space we call renewable energy.
Wow, that's it. That's a big change.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me a bit about the company then. How was it started and what's its purpose?
Yeah. So it was actually started by three individuals. They were at a McDonald's and decided that they wanted to go from just being a sales rep of residential solar, and instead, with their combined interests and skill sets, form a company that could do the actual construction, engineering, procurement, and add value to the customer by having influence on the entire value proposition of solar. And so that's where Kuubix was born. It's coming up on 6 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, it started from those three individuals, and now we have well over 400 employees, and we're in 6 different states, and we just keep growing and growing. You talk about the purpose. Really, solar and renewable energy is important for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it's a means to provide energy independence to individuals and companies. And that energy independence is clean and renewable. So we're removing harmful environmental impacts that have existed from an infrastructure that we now have technology to replace. But also really at the core is to provide employment for individuals that want to work hard, feel valued, have a challenge. And so us as leaders, we seek to provide a safe and sustainable working environment and an enjoyable working environment for those individuals, while providing renewable energy solutions for our customers.
Very good. And so do the systems tie into the state's energy grid, or are they standalone systems, or do you do both?
We have yet to do a pure standalone system, although we've come to the next best thing. So all solar connects in some way, shape, or fashion to the grid. But the way that we can create what we call a standalone system is through storage. They're essentially adding batteries into a storage system. So whether it be a huge factory that would have a very large storage system, or a power plant that would have a large storage system, or if it's a battery in your garage at your home, we provide solutions to where the energy that you produce on your rooftop is stored and consumed from that storage as a priority, and thus you only use or consume off the grid as needed.
I see. Okay. And do people have a choice in which way that they set it up then?
Yes, absolutely. The primarily what people think when they think of energy storage, they think of home backup.
Mhm.
What happens if the lights go out? Will I have power? But really what we're looking at is to say, what's the total value proposition, and what's the value of energy independence? If you're able to produce and consume your own power at your own leisure at a fraction of the cost of what it would take to receive that from the power grid. Now you're in control. But there's individuals that they simply want to manufacture the power on their roof, get credit from the power company for that to offset their bill. And we do those all the time as well.
Wow. So, you're in California, I'm in Florida, we're in sunny places. What happens in the north, in the northern states?
Surprisingly, they have significant amount of sun hours that make solar still a valuable proposition. The thing with solar is you can make it as big or as small as you want, depending on how many sun hours per year you get.
Okay.
More sun hours you get, the smaller typically the system can be. So take Texas, for example. Texas absolutely has much more extreme weather than California.
Mm-hmm.
Fewer sun hours in the year. So a normal system size there will be about 30% larger than a system size in California.
Wow. And what about data? Are you able to see and access data from mobile devices and PCs?
Oh yes,
That's cool.
that's what makes it fun. The tech geek in me is absolutely intrigued with all of that. The technology is such that you can see exactly each panel on your roof, how
Mhm.
much it's producing. Did it get any shade? Is it broken? Maybe has something happened that I need to go take a look at it? Do I need to wipe off my panels? Or are they covered in dirt? But then also there's new technology out that we've signed up with a company called Span, which creates smart main service panels. So gone are the days that you have your main panel with your breakers that you switch on and off, and if you have a circuit blow, you kind of go out in the middle of the night, out in your pajamas, trying to figure out which switch to toggle. That's all on an app on your phone
Really?
now, and you can say, "Yep, this is good. This is right. This is wrong." I can see what's consuming the most power. Oh wow, my kids' lights are still on. Well, I guess I can shut those off real quick. That's all done in the smart panel.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. And you also, I saw on your website, you have a solar calculator. So how does that work?
Yeah. So basically, like I was talking about with the sun hours. So to understand in your specific zip code, what uh, wh- what it basically tells you in your zip code how many sun hours you're going to receive, so
Mhm.
that you know how much solar you would have to install in order to offset your normal annual consumption.
Okay.
So solar, when you go solar, you no longer are tied to a month to month bill. You're tied to an annual bill.
Hmm.
Because in the summer, your system's going to produce way more energy than you can consume. But in the winter, it's probably going to produce less. So they even it out to where you're on an annualized bill. And at the end, they say you produced this much this year and you consumed this much this year. And as long as they offset each other, you're good to go.
Very cool. And it also looks like you offer different packages, so not everybody can just purchase the whole system, but there's also leasing options.
Correct. Yeah. So that's a typical. So ownership is our most popular option, but it does require higher credit scores. It requires a monthly payment associated with debt.
Mhm.
Whereas a lease or a PPA doesn't require those things. All they require is that you're the homeowner, and that asset on your roof can produce energy, and you pay for the energy that is produced, as opposed to when you're a homeowner, you take on that annualized bill.
Right.
So it's for all demographics, all mixes of what's necessary.
Very cool. And so what is a Tesla Powerwall? That sounds really cool.
Geoff, why don't you take this one?
It is cool because it has the name Tesla in it, right? Anything Tesla is cool. But even just starting with the look, they are very, very sleek. looking. Most people put them in their garages. I've seen some very cool photos of individuals who have their Tesla car parked right next to their Tesla battery. And so a Powerwall is a battery, and Tesla, just like their vehicles that they make to a very high standard, the Powerwall is made to a high standard as well. And so this goes back to a little bit of what Josh was talking about. A customer is not completely off the grid, but with a battery, they get pretty darn close. They run their, they consume energy off of the solar panels during the day, and then at night, if there's enough storage, they can then consume off of the batteries that are in there. And Tesla has a very sleek app, as you can imagine, just being very high tech, where you can just see exactly what's going on with your battery, what energy is going to the grid, what energy is coming back to you, and how energy is being consumed in your home.
Wow. So does this, you hear in the news of the brownouts in California, does this stop that from happening? Like, does that protect you a little bit?
It does. That's a big seller. Um, you hear the acronym PSOs, power shutoffs, which happen, the brownouts in the state in advance of potential fires, and that is what draws customers to this system. We do have customers that have purchased whole home backup where they can go for a week or even longer, just cycling back and forth between solar during the day and the batteries at night. And so definitely in those areas of the state, there's a high interest in getting storage along with solar.
Well, that makes sense. And I was reading a little bit that as of the year 2000, California had only 11% of energy from renewable resources. Then by 2018, it had grown to 34%, with a goal of 60% by 2030 and 100% carbon-free energy by 2045. So where do you think California is at achieving those milestones?
Geoff, why don't you take the stats from CalSA, and then I'll insert my opinions there.
Let's see. I don't know the exact stats where we are today in the uh, in achieving that goal. But coming from the fossil fuel industries before, California, they've done a lot of things to move and incentivize individuals to go towards just renewable energy, incentivizing the renewable fuels, and now we're talking, the solar energy. Recently, surprisingly, in California, there has been some. It wasn't legislation, but some rules that were potentially going to be put in place that would hamper somewhat solar, but that's been pushed back on so that California residents can continue to benefit and enjoy solar and take advantage of the of reducing their utility bills. Probably familiar, and this is deviating a little, but energy costs in California are significantly higher than elsewhere in the country. The price that we pay per watt is fairly expensive, and it continues to go up on a regular basis. And so that's another large incentive for Californians to want to go solar, so they can really control their energy and manage their bills. More importantly, what they pay for their energy consumption.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think achieving those goals, California has done a good job with setting those goals and making them very public. They unfortunately didn't bring everyone to the table to get their commitment to those. Geoff mentioned a potential rule that was going to be put into place that would essentially make residential rooftop solar non-existent. That was put together by the California Public Utilities Commission. So when you go to set a goal to be at a certain percentage of renewable energy by a specific date, you can't just do that sitting behind a desk. You have to have everyone involved. The California Electrical Commission is on board, but the California Public Utilities Commission is not. so they're going to stand at odds against each other. The CEC says, in 2022, all new commercial and retail and industrial buildings have to have renewable energy associated with them, either solar or wind. But the CPUC on the other side is saying, we're going to make that cost prohibitive. So without them on board with each other, we're not going to achieve this goal. And so, and I'm not pointing the finger and saying that the Public Utilities Commission are bad people. They have a job to do. They're looking at the infrastructure of the state and saying, we can only handle so much electricity at any given time. And if there's a lot of production coming during the sun hours, but there's not so much production happening at night, we can't handle that as a grid without significant modification. And who's going to pay for that? We shouldn't tax everyone. We should put a rule that only taxes the people that are putting the solar energy onto the grid. That's their perspective. That's their prerogative, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah.
So I think what's important is we have to, this is similar to the water conversation that we have in California. The Central Valley does not have access to sufficient water to be able to grow, and we produce so much of the country's and the world's staples. So if the Central Valley is calling for more water, but Northern California is calling for a preserve, those people aren't on the same page. And how can we ever hope to legislate something that will satisfy the needs of both? You have to have everyone around the table and have to be able to have everyone on the same page. Same thing with renewable energy.
That totally makes sense. Are you seeing the same challenges in other states?
Not so much. Strangely enough, we see in most states that the utility commissions and the states themselves are working hand in hand. It really depends on the population and complexity of the grid where we see a disconnect. For example, Florida, the utilities commission there with Florida Light and Power just passed a regulation for their public utilities commission that puts additional cost and constraint on people with residential rooftop solar.
Okay.
The governor hasn't signed it yet, so it's not yet in place, but that just goes to show a high population area with a lot of sun that would produce a lot of energy at half the day, but then still has high consumption needs at the other half of the day, needs to do something to their grid in order to make it sustainable.
Yeah. And
who's going to pay for that? You can't tax the people that aren't putting solar on their roof or solar on their factory or solar in their farm. Mm-hmm. So the Utilities Commission comes up with this idea to tax the solar, the solar producers, and makes it very complicated. In order to really achieve energy independence through renewable energy, we have to do something completely different than what we've always been doing, which is, again, another reason why batteries are so important, why storage is so important, because you can manufacture all the energy that you need, and instead of sending it to the grid, you keep it in your home, or you keep it on your farm, or you keep it wherever it needs to go. And you're not negatively impacting the grid, but you're also not being negatively impacted by the high prices of the energy that you're having to pay.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, and so we met at the World Ag Expo last month in California, and so kind of bringing it back to agriculture, I've seen some really cool uses for solar panels in agriculture settings. I've seen them to shelter goats and sheep, to provide shade and grazing land at the same time. So what ag uses have you guys been seeing and been a part of?
The coolest one that I've ever seen was so being in the food industry, I've spent a lot of time out in orchards and fields and farms. there was a massive almond orchard, couple thousand acres worth of almonds that were under this control, where you had a weather control system that told the individual lines of each sector of the orchard how much to water and when, and it depended on the temperature, the humidity, the moisture content in the soil, and the whole thing was powered by solar power, and was truly separate from the grid. There was no grid no grid interconnection there. So if it was a rainy day, the system wouldn't power itself, but it didn't matter because it was raining. So it would default to shut off the water. So that was a really cool application. They probably had a megawatts worth of solar energy spread throughout this farm, and no drop of water was wasted in the growing of almonds. And
wow.
So
wow, that's really incredible. I used to work in the greenhouse industry, and so it's a complete controlled environment, right? So that's really neat to see that transitioning to be outdoors too.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always run my electric fences for my livestock off of solar.
Oh yeah.
Solar units. I love them, and then you can just pick it up and move it to wherever you need. And yeah.
And I think there's a lot of application. Anything that you need freestanding energy to, before you start trenching out to that location and finding a main tie-in line, start with seeing how much solar could intervene. I know there's a lot of citrus around where we live, and there's been a lot of conversation about converting the diesel powered fans that prevent the citrus from being impacted by a potential freeze, replacing those with electric, again with those large battery storage items. Those could be completely freestanding because they don't need to be connected to the grid. You connect them, you power them with solar, you connect them to these large batteries, they can run all night.
Wow.
I would love to see something like that, blending two industries together. What I came from before, again, Josh mentioned diesel powered. I remember they only call for fuel during just a few weeks during the year when we get those freezes. And you send trucks out, and there's often rain accompanied, and it becomes dangerous somewhat too, where we get these large fuel trucks stuck in the middle of this citrus orchard. And to have those run off of solar would be great for everyone involved.
Yeah, I bet. That's incredible. And over the last 2 years has obviously been tough for everybody. Everybody has a story. So what did you learn in your company over the last 2 years that's helping you grow now?
Geoff, you start, and then I'll finish that one.
Maybe a word that a lot of people use, but resilience. I feel fortunate here at Kuubix. There wasn't a huge dip down, but we, like many others, had to shift protocol and how we went about doing business, even from installers to everyone, just how we interacted and got out to the jobs. And we had things thrown at us left and right, correct? There were times where installers were going to areas of California where almost everything was shut down. There weren't even nearly weren't even gas stations open, at least to go inside, which created issues. But we found ways to work around that, and I feel that our teams were resilient, and we're able to continue moving forward and still doing installation. Fortunately, the solar industry was an essential industry because we are providing energy, and so that's something that our customers needed, and just being a part of that allowed us to continue to work. But we definitely had to shift and be resilient and be creative and find ways to still continue working.
Yeah. I'll echo that for sure. I received a bachelor's degree in micro and molecular biology with an emphasis in immunology and a minor in chemistry. And here I am in business and a CEO of a company. And I never would have thought that something would have come up where, boy, that degree sure came in handy to help understand disease spread and be ahead of the curve while everyone was kind of panicking and trying to understand, well, really, what is a virus and why is everyone so scared of this? We were able to sit back and collectively with knowledge and the research that was at hand, be able to make decisions for the company to help keep our employees safe and to help navigate through all these things. In the original outbreak of the virus, we had nothing. I mean, thank God that we didn't have any real outbreaks whatsoever within the company. Delta variant, same thing. We stayed very strong. Omicron, I think everyone got it. I think that was a given that everyone got Omicron, but we were able to stay clear of that. The biggest thing that I have learned and a message that I try and get out as much as possible is we have to do more as a country to support local industry. So right now, gas in California is over $6, and it's because of our dependence on foreign crude oil. We are suffering a microchip shortage, which is causing inflation on all the electronics that we use each and every day, and shortages that we use on those. Why aren't we manufacturing those? We actually experienced, we received our solar panels from a very reputable, large firm in China that was then discovered to be using slave labor in their supply chain.
Oh, wow.
And immediately we shut that off and converted to a domestic, a panel that was made out of Georgia.
Wow.
So, I think as a country, there's so much availability for industry. That industry can promote more jobs, more diversity in the workplace, and also help stifle this inflation that we're suffering with, because we can afford to take prices down on things if we have more people going to work every single day, making an honest wage and an honest paycheck. But I just don't, there's not enough of those positions out there. And so there's the haves and the have-nots, and it's unfortunately getting worse.
Right. Yeah, those are some really great points. And if people want more information about what you guys do, where can they find you?
You can go to kuubixenergy.com, and that will inform you all about our residential space. But for anyone who's interested in solar, on their solar and storage for their factory, their packing house, their farm, anything like that, you can go to Kuubix C&I, which stands for commercial and industrial.
Okay.
And that will direct you to information. You'll see some of the large solar fields that we've been a part of, and some of the solar installations on top of factories that we've been a part of. You'll be able to get more information there.
Excellent. So I have one last question for each of you. What are you most passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's driving you?
I love, so Kuubix, we have 6 core values with Kuubix, each kind of an acronym, KUUBIX. And the X at the end stands for excellence, Chrissy. And I think that's what drives me. We encourage ourselves and our employees to work hard, work smart, do your best, give your most honest, sincere effort, and encourage others to do the same. And that's what I like to do, be excellent and be a part of an excellent team. And that's what brings me to work in the morning. I feel like I'm surrounded by capable individuals, people that do want to do their best as well. And I enjoy encouraging others to do their best. And in addition, it's a good cause where we are allowing individuals and consumers to be energy independent. And for all the reasons that Josh mentioned earlier, it becomes just more and more important each year to provide that opportunity for individuals, companies, farmers to gain energy independence.
Yeah, and I definitely echo that. I love providing jobs. Love providing jobs, and doing so in a safe and enjoyable manner, where people actually like coming to work. But I think, above all that, it is important to provide a renewable solution, and to provide energy independence. And so I really thrill in meeting with customers and clients to show them, uh, how they can uh, how they can become a part of this movement. You know, the electrification of the world is something that I never thought I would hear such a thing, but it's true that's where we're moving. And the new electric vehicles that are coming out are absolutely amazing. And we need to provide an energy source to fuel
Mhm.
those, in air quotes, fuel
Yeah.
those vehicles that is clean and sustainable. And that's exciting. You know, when I meet with uh, when I meet with a company there's a large glass manufacturer that has a small city as their plant, and they're talking about needing 6 megawatts of solar to power their plant, and then have equal amounts of storage to keep their plant running. Man, that's exciting. That's really fun to think that what once was traditionally an industry that caused a lot of pollution in the air. They've now changed their manufacturing processes to where there's no more pollution, but now they're looking for their energy consumption to come from a pollution-free and sustainable, renewable source. That's fun. That's fun. Not to mention they save money by doing it. It's cheaper to go solar than to purchase off the grid. So that's a lot of fun. That's what keeps me passionate, is helping people discover those things.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. What a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on your program.
Yeah. And thanks to everyone who's watching or listening. If you want to learn more, all the links will be provided in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to North American Egg Spotlight on YouTube, Rumble, or Egg Fuse channels. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day.